Hi, my name is Charlie Palumbo. I am a coach and author and excited to be here with you today to talk about a collaboration that I have worked on with Maddie over the last 6 months that we are so excited to bring you.
And I am Madelaine Gomes. I'm a transition coach and a spiritual teacher and a speaker and author. And I love what we're doing, bring transformation and healing into people's lives. And we wrote this book because it's so applicable for the times that we are in now. And we notice, both of us, that the inner critic is the most important part of us that's either allowing us to move forward or allowing us to freeze in the past. And we want to bring awareness to this and teach our clients how to break free from the inner critic and get back into their flow without the doubt and without the fear of the unknown. What do you feel, Charlie?
Yeah, I was going to say, I love that because I'm noting that more and more I can kind of summarize what I'm seeing with people as what stops them from moving forward or living their dreams or passion is this inner critic, this voice in our heads inside of us that we often think is us. And it's kind of noting and putting a spotlight that that is not how we are meant to live our life. And this book has really been a work of putting down frameworks and different exercises and ways to kind of overcome that and go back and follow the root of where it even started.
It's a beautiful journey because it's also allowing you to understand your roots and your patterns within you and why you do certain things and how to overcome that and step into your full potential and power. We have this inner critic in us all the time, but how often do we pay attention to it? Because it's in the subconscious mind, so it's part of our programming, it just comes through. And without paying attention to it, we just do what it says and allow us to doubt ourselves, to fear what we want to do. For instance, if we have a new idea, the fear steps in, but if, what if? And the doubt steps in, but can I? Am I good enough? And self doubt and all that. And we just take it for granted. We're giving this voice in ourselves space to basically kill our dreams. I call it the dream killer. But if we can master it through being aware of it, and we are going to teach the tools of how to master it and turn it into your superpower, then you become unlimited.
And you become free. I think one of
Yes.
the things that I was so surprised about as I've worked through my own process of the inner critic and coming to call it mean girl. I call mine mean girl. So that I can kind of note when it's happening and kind of step in front of it instead of letting the momentum take me into like a very dark negative space of ruminating and ruminating. But I've been surprised by the amount of freedom I've felt as I kind of work through this. And I don't know about you, but I know that every time I level up in my life, the inner critic kind of turns back on. So I don't think this is something we just like overcome and it's like bye. But like you said, it's a part of us. And so it's getting to know that part and then allowing it to be almost a compass of where you're sitting. Like if something comes back online that's so mean and nasty, that's not how we're meant to be. That's not our inherent confidence or self-worth. It's something that's blocking that, but it's also asking us for some attention. And so to attend to it then allows us, but I think it's a lifelong process because I noticed as we worked on this book, both of us have had the opportunity to work through some of the exercises in our personal life, right?
Yeah, it often blocked and stopped us, right? We couldn't actually meet at the time we said we're going to meet because we both had stuff that we worked through and it just popped up and it boiled over. And it's something that you're not aware of. That's so much part of your life. And working through the book actually although we gave birth to it, it still made me very aware of it. And I'm aware of it when it pops up. It's still, I might allow it and then realize, what am I doing? So it's not an instant recipe, but the consciousness that you step into by becoming aware and change your vibration and your frequency, that is what allows you to catch it quicker.
Yeah, I love that. And we kind of talk a little bit about that in the book, as like you're looking back, like you're feeling that the gap is closing quicker and quicker for you. So like you catch the
Mm.
moment, you don't ruminate all night. Maybe you only ruminate for, 2 hours. And like each time
Mm.
it gets easier and easier to see what's happening and to catch those thoughts and to actually transmute them, to change them so that they do resonate at a higher frequency with your passion
Mm.
and your dreams, so that you can kind of move forward. And as hard as the process of working through the inner critic is, it's been also a joy to do it, with a friend and a collaborator, as we work through the processing and we're able to support one another. And I think, and it's kind of dawned on me that we're actually creating kind of a support group for those with the inner critic, or those who, I mean, we all have it, but for those who are acknowledging it, because this is big work for us, and it can be really scary and intimidating, because that inner critic, when you find it, sometimes gets louder. So we've actually become the support system for one another on some of these things. And I think that's one of the things that I genuinely want to offer to others as we do this work together and with others in workshops and stuff, is that sometimes you just need support.
And you need to hear somebody else, because when it's your inner critic, you're so used to it. But when you listen to other stories or you get a teaching on it, you start to realize, oh, I understand now. So it takes the self doubt out of it, it takes the self critic out of it. Oh, pardon me. And it gives it more meaning and understanding. And when we understand, we can change.
I love that.
Oh, sorry, my throat. Um, I just think it is a beautiful journey to be on, that we are able to talk about the inner critic without judgment towards ourselves, but in a very loving way, start to love ourselves for who we are, and start to, because we understand the inner workings of ourselves. And then we can break through these blocks and we can make that our strengths.
Absolutely. And we can have a little fun and sense of humor with it too, because it can feel it can feel like a lot when you're going through it, but to be able to laugh about it and to be able to kind of put it in perspective and find some like lightheartedness and joy even in this process has been such a gift that I hope we can offer people through our work and working around this conversation on the inner critic, because it can be a lot. And I also think, as you walk through it and you find that freedom and you are able to tap into your potential and what you're called to do, you start feeling this sense of joy that
Mm.
really is how I think we're meant to show up in the world.
Absolutely. What I feel about the inner critic is, as we heal the inner critic, from a critic to a support within us, rather, um, we make space to flow again. And with that space that we make space to receive, and we are more open to see potential and to go for it instead of killing it before it's even really manifesting in your life. Because sometimes, and I had it in my past, I had the most amazing opportunities. And looking back and connecting the dots now, I had the most silliest excuses why not to take the most amazing opportunities. But because I didn't know at that stage, and I wasn't so aware, and I wasn't so taught about this, um, I allowed that inner critic to kill my dreams. And when I look at it today and I think of the opportunities that I missed, my life would be totally different. And I know we all say, but you are where you are supposed to be. and so on and so on. Yes, I agree with that. But there were certain dreams that I had, and the universe brought it to me. And I was the one that came up with all the excuses not to take that. So, although we say we are where we're supposed to be, I could be at that supposed to be as well. So, for the future, it's very good to understand this process and to be aware of it. So when you do see these amazing opportunities coming your way, and you get the voice in your head or in your body basically telling you why you shouldn't do that, then you can notice it. You can take note and you can say, okay, you're saying why not? Well, I'm saying why not? I should. What's going to happen if I do take it? If I'm not, I'm freezing, I'm standing exactly where I am, nothing's going to change. But if I take this opportunity without the doubt and the fear that the inner critic brings, because actually, does it really have value? When you look at it at the end of the day, that fear and doubt had no value. It kept me frozen in the situation where I was already. I didn't go anywhere. So if I go, okay, but I am going to take it and I weigh it up in a more positive way and take the opportunity, then you're unfrozen and you move forward into your future.
Yeah, and I love two things that as you're speaking, I was thinking about. One, it's easy to compare ourselves to others because as you're sharing this story, I'm like, well, but you're a doctor and you're in metaphysics and you've done all these, you're a speaker and an author, and I could compare myself. And then I think about the comparison trap and really when we take a minute to connect with others, we realize that like here's something that we're all dealing with. Even when we reach certain moments that from the outside look like, oh, someone succeeded. It's like hearing you talk about that journey and what you had to overcome, fills me with hope. you know, um, uh, all of us are kind of facing that. And then it's a reminder too that part of the inner critic is that comparison, comparing yourself to what
Mm.
others are doing
Mm.
and get in the way over and over and over because you're always looking outside of yourself and your inner critic's always like flipping on saying, oh, you're not as good as that, or you don't have this, certification or that or that or that. And then the other thing as you were speaking really hit me is kind of this vision that I see when we're doing this work around the inner critic, the opportunity to support or and show people a mechanism or a framework, however you want to talk about the work in the book, but that helps them reach their highest potential. And I think about what you're saying, like if you had the opportunity to do some things, but you got in your own way, how many people aren't living and tapping into their
Mm.
fullest potential because that inner critic is stopping them? And if they were living in their fullest potential, how much the world would change. And I know that sounds like, ooh, but I believe really if we could all step into our power and really reclaim that confidence in our own self love, we could change the world so quickly because everybody would really be living into their highest potential at all times.
You see, the world starts within us. So if you look at how we were as a child, I spoke a lot today, so my voice is busy going. At the time, we're talking about the inner critic. Anyway, when you look at how you were as a child, you had no inner critic for a very long time. If you wanted to do something, you wanted to do it. You did it without fear, without overthinking it, without blocking yourself. If we, a young, somebody said to me, "Why don't you start to play the piano?" I mean, I had no idea about the piano. I loved music. And I went and I sat in front of it and they showed me the notes. And it was no doubt, no fear. And I played that piano within a month. I had the highest score in my exam because no doubt, no fear. So, and I look at those little wins when you were young, and then I go, but how did I achieve that? And that's how. And then we start to build these filters inside of us that's blocking and stopping us due to criticism and whatever we went through and all the disappointments and this and that. But if we can learn to be a child again, and if we can learn just to embrace ourselves fully, and when we have an opportunity, just say, why not? Let's just take it. And if you make a mistake, I don't ever believe there's mistakes. I told one client the other day, he kept on talking about his mistakes. I said, there's no mistakes. If we didn't make so called mistakes, where are we going to learn the wisdom from? Because you don't wake up in the morning, so I want to make a mistake. So don't see it as a mistake if you take an opportunity and it doesn't turn out the way you want it to be, because you still gain wisdom and information from it. And maybe from there, you get redirected to another opportunity. You don't know. But, people are scared of failure and they're scared of making a mistake. And therefore, we're not taking a chance. And then we come up with all these excuses. So, this book is beautiful because it actually allows people to see and to feel that and understand the inner workings, the inner architecture, and what's really blocking and stopping them, and how to overcome that. And I believe we can really lead people to, first of all, a higher consciousness level. And second of all, as a group, when we start to run our groups, which is soon, is to in the group elevate that consciousness and imagine collectively what we can create and do in a group if we remind ourselves about the inner critic.
It's so true and so beautiful. And I am so excited for the work that we have done, the work that we're doing, and the work to come around this inner critic conversation. And I I have just really been humbled by it and filled with
Mm.
joy at the same time, and a type of freedom that I just really want others to be able to feel as you kind of move through this inner dialogue, and kind of are able to take control over it, a- and have this intuition that we're born with. As you said, we're not born with this inner critic, but we do have this intuitive side of us that we come into the world with, that is curious and wants to try everything and is just naturally confident. And I don't know that
Mm.
everybody believes that we're confident when we come into the world, but I definitely believe that we come here confident and with intuition. And then, as you've kind of pointed out, things get in the way. And that's what kind of blocks us from our highest potential. And this work, I think, has the opportunity to really change that mindset if people are interested. And you said something that made me think about too, the some of what we talk about in the book is really changing your story. And when you're
Mm.
talking about looking at past failure as growth and not good or bad really, but just you learned, it is really can be a challenge to change the story that you have been telling yourself about that mistake or that bad thing. And so we get into this narrative that we continue and continue and continue, and until you can challenge yourself almost to recreate that story, that it is growth, that it was a blessing, it can keep you from being who you're meant to be
Mm.
in this world. Well, your fullest potential. I think we're all where we're meant to be, wherever that is, but your fullest potential. So I'm really excited to work with people also on kind of reframing that conversation, because I know it's a challenge for me, because even though I know it, sometimes I still want the same story. Like I still tell myself the same story, like, oh, that's a mistake. And I'm like, no, that's not a mistake. That was a growth moment. That was a
Yeah.
blessing. That was an opportunity. So really working on telling a new story.
I know that it blocked me from healing after my company got targeted by a crime syndicate, and I was this strong, successful businesswoman, living up to the expectations of this strong, successful businesswoman. And then I was vulnerable, and nobody really believed that I'm vulnerable because I'm always so strong, you know. So when I gave up the fight and for the safety of my son and myself, and I decided to close my business and leave my home behind as it is and just find a safer space. For years, I couldn't heal. And then as I started to do this work, um, this exact conversation with myself came up. And I was asking myself, what am I telling myself that's keeping myself stuck in pain? And you're not going to believe it. It was literally telling myself, my inner critic was saying, but what if you tried this? But what if you went there? But what if you made that decision? But why didn't you do that? And then I remember, but at that, that kept me hostage for years in pain, blaming myself and being in shame because now I didn't do everything, you know, and it kept me there. And then one day I just realized that's my inner critic keeping me from healing. And I said to myself, okay, I go back in that moment and revisit it again. And I remember the fear that I had from what I was going through. It was really, really serious. And I remember of 2 years of not sleeping, of having 12 cameras around my house, and it was still not enough, of being followed on the road, of being, wherever I went, the people would pop up, the same people intimidating. And it was like MK style. And I remembered how all I wanted to do is protect my son. And every person that came to visit me was threatened on the phone afterwards. And then I knew that the decision I made was the right decision. And I couldn't understand, why did I not remember that? You know, why didn't I remind myself about that? Why and how I got there? And it's this inner critic that takes the result and turn it into a very painful situation. What if? Should have, could have. And I got stuck in that. So I know of a lot of people that I coach that they always stuck in the shame and the blame of the inner critic. I should have, I could have. And that's the beauty of this book. And the inner critic is to understand it and what it does to you and how to master it so it will never happen again.
I think that's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that story, because that's a vulnerable story, and definitely one that I can see the inner critic popping up and being online for years with. And that's a really big story, but we do have an inner critic on just small things too. I mean, it's simple task of like, I didn't get somewhere on time. And then you start berating yourself for, oh my gosh, the food that I made for the family didn't turn out right. And you start berating yourself. So it can also come online with small, like daily
Yes.
tasks. And so you have this like major moment that, of course, like, oh yeah, of course there could be inner critic on a whole business deal gone wrong. And we also have these moments where it's compounding, where we're constantly repeating those negative things on just daily tasks that we do that aren't good enough,
Mm.
or we don't feel like are up to a perfection level. And so I
Mm.
think it's interesting how the inner critic can touch our lives in both really big ways and then on small daily things. But regardless, I think it compounds. And so if you're talking to yourself about the big things, it's coming up over and over on the small things. Or if you're talking on the small things, when a big thing happens, that's going to be the voice that you're training. That's going to be the
Yes.
one that's the loudest. So you're almost feeding it and
Yes.
training it to get bigger. And then you're like, oh, why is this such a hard thing? Because you've been feeding it over and over. And I don't think we even know, really, most of the time. I don't think we even think about the fact that we're talking to ourselves in a way that honestly, I would never talk to you. the way I talk to myself sometimes. I just wouldn't do it. There's not a world I'm in that I could think about saying some of the things to you that I would say to myself. And I think that's a powerful reminder that we should share our that same grace with our own selves first,
Yes.
and then we're better and more able to give out real unconditional love and support to others when we're in that place for ourselves.
That is so beautiful and so true because as we heal ourselves, we've got more to give.
Yes, I think so.
Beautiful. I'm looking very forward to this journey, Charlie.
Me too,
Can't
Madelaine.
wait to start.
I can't either. And yeah, so if you're interested, our book is Break Free from the Inner Critic, Reclaim Your Confidence and Self Love. And we'll also be putting up workshops probably in the new year that you all can all join us and take part in if you're interested in learning more about the inner critic, or if you just want to buy the book. We're excited to have you just buy a copy of the book.
Wonderful. I'm looking very forward to that. And I'm looking forward to meeting new people.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've